a few microphones in the studios and so forth. Yes.
Well, thanks again for being here, Leonard, and the team talked a little bit about your path and also the busy week you've been having at the FBI with some very big news items. But maybe we'll just start with that story that the team began to reference. A little bit about your path in your own words and how Stritch might have played a role along the way.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to return to the university and participate in this great Speakers Bureau program that Cardinal Stritch has. This is truly an honor for me to come back and address the current students, some prospective students, and alumni like myself and the faculty here. So this is really a true honor to be here tonight. It all started for me was working in my dream job, as Peter mentioned. I started my senior year in high school interning for a radio station here in town. Was hired right after I graduated, so I equated it to being drafted right into the majors. Milwaukee is a sizable market as far as the nation is concerned, a medium media market for radio and TV, so we're like number 35 or so in the country, which is not bad, not a bad place for a 17-year-old to get his start. So I enjoyed that career. I maintained position on the air for many years. I was there for 16 years, but off the air, I also was promoted into management positions as the assistant program director and music director. Decided after that a very good run in radio to make what wasn't it wasn't a decision I took lightly, but it was just something that I felt I did everything I wanted to do. I had that burning desire to still follow some other dreams that I had, and so I made a decision to leave the broadcast world and go into a position off the air in a field that I could transfer those skills that I had learned over all those years in radio into what would be public relations opportunities. So I looked at a number of different opportunities. I started networking immediately, ended up getting together with a person who was an extremely effective mentor for me, and she assisted me in just looking at what opportunities were out there. She was very well connected, so she was able to at least get me in the door for some key interviews. Eventually, I would go to work for her about a year later over at the Milwaukee Brewers, and I enjoyed that career from 2000 to 2007. A lot of exciting things. It goes without saying, it's the Brewers. I mean, I went from working in a radio market where the reach of the station was pretty much the metropolitan area or just slightly beyond, and now I'm working for an organization with statewide reach with Major League Baseball. After all the years at the Brewers, one of the things that I always maintained an interest in was law enforcement, and specifically in the public information realm of law enforcement. Knowing that I had obviously a background in being on the air and obviously able to speak to the message of whatever organization I'm representing, I set out to just kind of dip my toe into that water a little bit, started networking again, finding out if there are opportunities that exist, and eventually there was an opportunity at the FBI, which I had never factored in. I always thought, maybe I would work for a local law enforcement agency somewhere within the area. I never saw the job at the FBI coming, and as Mr. Holbrook mentioned, that in itself, we can probably get into that a little bit, but that job in itself, the job I currently do, was something that I had in my mind thought, boy, it would be pretty cool if I could do this particular position for the FBI. And once I got the job, I couldn't believe when I looked back at the paper that he mentioned. I wrote those ideas down, my top tenors, and there it sat, the number one thing that I wanted to pursue in title now existed. It came to fruition, and here I was in the job, and it's really been a terrific experience.
I think we'll come back a little bit to what your day-to-day at the FBI, particularly everything in the news, but just before we leave the pathway, and we were talking to some of us earlier about the role that your education took here and the not so traditional way in which you came to your education and what it meant to you elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. You know, number one, everything that I learned here at my degree is from the College of Business, everything I learned here at Carmel Springs University, I will tell you, without question, all of my courses, the ones that I enjoyed, the ones that I didn't enjoy so much, they all apply in some way to all of those positions that I talked about, whether it was in radio, working in public affairs for the Milwaukee Brewers, and in my current job in public affairs for the FBI. The courses that really stick out for me was any type of creative writing, any type of effective writing courses that I took, marketing, communications courses that were taken along the way in that business program, even cultural diversity. I work with I work with various cultural groups in my current position at the FBI in public affairs. We deal with a cross-section of the community all the time, leadership from various cultural groups all over the place. And so that particular course came into play. I had a conflicts resolution, a negotiation and conflict resolution course that I will tell you serves me well in my job. I have to negotiate with reporters all the time on a daily basis in my job on various things, and so it really, when I look back, virtually all of the courses I took, I was telling the group earlier, you know, numbers is not my favorite thing. Well, you know what? Statistics serves me well in my job. Reporters love when they can quantify numbers, when they can see if that the crime rate is falling or if it's rising, if it's flat, whatever the case may be, and numbers tells that story in a very quick way to their viewers, their listeners, or their readers. And so, trust me, even the stuff that I didn't take to very well, but I knew I needed to pass it, it serves me well in my job. So I would say everything that I took here, I apply those experiences on a daily basis to what I do in my life.
And so, transitioning to what you do every day in your life. So, your title is quite unusual, it would seem, for the outsider, for the FBI. So, you're representing to the public the secrets of the organization. How do you put it together that you're dealing with a lot of things that are quite confidential, and yet you need to present that to the media, to the law enforcement that you're partners with, to the community, all these folks? So help us, particularly maybe put it in light of what Dr. Holbrook talked about. You had some major events happen this past week.
Well, number one, nothing secret ever gets out. So that's my job, is to make sure that that doesn't get out. And there is that balance that you have to strike. I have to strike that every day because we do handle sensitive and secret information all the time. You know, the FBI's number one priority is to combat terrorism. And in order to do that, you know, we handle the highest critical information that the nation has to keep Americans safe when you're awake during the day and while you're sleeping at night. And so we are handling some high-level materials and things, and so you're exposed to that all the time. The balance is, especially in when you have investigations that are underway, you have to protect the integrity of that investigation, and that's where the job that I do becomes so effective. My job in the FBI is not a law enforcement role. I don't go out and I don't arrest people, and I don't work investigations. But where it becomes an important tool that we use is when we have, in a crisis management situation, the public information officer is sitting right there in the command group. This is the key decision makers when you have major incidents, such as a situation as we saw in the last few days with the abduction of the little baby out of Beloit. There was a person who's been arrested, and she's in custody at this point and charged with attempted abduction of an infant. To terrorism issues, to active shooter situations that you have seen that has been in the news so far too often as of late. But that is where the public messaging job becomes a extremely important tool in those when it comes to crisis management. So I am handling some sensitive and yes, secret information, but striking that balance between what the public has the right to know and what the public needs to know is where the job becomes the most effective. There are some things that we can talk about, and so when things are not so pressure-filled, and I am going through the day-to-day parts of the job of being the public affairs specialist, I'm often going to be out in the community, making introductions, opening our doors of communicating with people in the public, whether it be in education realm in the at a place of academia, or it might be in a religious setting, at a mosque or at a synagogue, at a church, talking to people in the community, talking about the things that are not so secretive and classified, and letting people know, demystifying the things that people hear about in the FBI. Hollywood and TV shows have told our story time and time again, and don't always tell it the way we would like it to be told. So my job is to go out and tell the FBI story and talk about our people, our programs, our priorities. And this is how we are working with Americans on a daily basis to keep everybody safe. You trust the people that you know. You trust the people that you see, that you talk to. You don't see us and you never meet us. It's going to be hard for you to trust us when things aren't going so well and we're now knocking at the doors.
Just building on this idea of the trust, one of the things we talked a lot about, as you recall, in College of Business, is how do you align your actions with your values so that you feel like you are trustworthy, that you have that kind of dignity in your job, and that it aligns with the kind of person you want to be. I can't resist. We have the mission up on the board, and it talks about that big infused in it is that alignment, and it talks about being adaptive to different situations. Can you talk about how that plays out?
Well, I will tell you, for me personally, my personal values is honesty and integrity. And thankfully that aligns very nicely with the FBI's values: fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And on a daily basis, that's how I approach my life personally, and that's how I approach my life professionally. One of the things that really is a big button pusher for me, as far as what I love the most about my job, is working for a historic agency that those initials get you in the door. Well, for the most part, they do. But they will get you in the door with groups that I love to address, and that's young people. I came from the city of Milwaukee. Grew up in some neighborhoods that had a lot of challenges as a young person. And I talk to young people all the time. Whenever there's an opportunity that presents itself, I call them opportunities and privileges to talk to young men and women that specifically that are in many of those neighborhoods I grew up in. We moved all over the north side of Milwaukee. And when I can get into a school where I know there is young men and women that are experiencing many of the same challenges I had, single parent family, big family, I came from a large family, but never had a father figure in my life, and to be able to even spend a little bit of time getting in front of them and as quickly as I can trying to infuse a positive message, because let's face it, there's a lot of kids out there that are experiencing some challenges that much worse than I ever experienced, but they also have very few positive images in their life, and subsequently they don't have a great self-confidence that they really are special people, that they really were put on this earth to do some great things. And so subsequently, they may not always make the best choices for themselves. And if you make the wrong choice as a young person, well, that could limit how high you go in life. So I look at those as opportunities in my job that when I am invited to go and be in front of young people in groups at schools or in any type of a education center, I love to get in there and be able to influence them and motivate them as much as I can to give them a little bit of the Leonard Peace story and have them realize the sky's the limit on what they want to do, and what they can.
just building on a little bit of that story and what you've gone through, we talked earlier today about what we now call as networking, which is something you maybe didn't know the term of earlier on, but you were doing it. So what tips, along with having a Stritch degree, which was the key part, what in addition to that do you find has worked for you in networking? What do people respond to? What would you suggest to others?
Well, one of the things, when I shifted through, even though I kind of kept things, the core business that I stayed in was the public relations, communications realm. I was, those were some considerable shifts in the environments that I was in. I went from, the fast-paced turnaround live radio world of working at WKTI to now I'm going to Major League Baseball, a high-profile organization with statewide and national reach, and then I go to work for the FBI. And each time I made those changes, whenever I'm talking to friends and colleagues as I'm passing from one to the next, it was always, so baseball, or so from radio to the Brewers. Yeah. Then I went from the Brewers to the FBI. So from baseball to the FBI. Really? Wow. Well, it all the while it's staying within, I was still staying true to the public relations, the communications realm. But yeah, those jobs were very different. And it required something that, quite frankly, in order to even know about those opportunities existing, I had to do some very effective networking. And it's something that I recommend to students that are of younger age, students that may be returning to school to finish off a degree. One of the best tools in your toolbox is to get out and do some effective networking. That was something that was, you mentioned, I didn't know what it was in the beginning. What Mark was talking about was, before I ever got into radio, I always dreamt of doing that type of a job ever since I was 10 years old. So I didn't get to that station until I was 17. In between that time, from when I was that little kid running around, back then I had hair, so I was a little nappy-headed kid running around and wanting to get into this business so badly of radio or television. I was, I will never forget the first person I met in radio that sat across the desk from me and said, well, kid, I'm going to tell you, you get into this business, you're going to work for peanuts, and it's all about who you know. And I remember my first thought was, heck, I pay you to do this job. I want to do this job. But the second thing was, I'm probably not going to make it because I don't know anybody. No one in my family ever did anything close to this. I didn't have any examples I could point to say that might happen. I didn't think it was in the cards. All the same, I had nothing to lose. So I just forged on. I thought if this doesn't work, well, it was a lot of fun getting to meet all these people, all these nice, wonderful people who let me come in to visit with them. But what I didn't realize I was doing at the time, and this is why Mark said, you didn't know what that was then, because every time I walked into the next radio station or the next TV station and talked to a reporter or a news director or a news anchor or someone that was on the air at a radio station, each time I'm walking in with this list that was growing. My networking list was growing. So I'm walking through the door with portfolio all of a sudden. Another word I didn't know what it meant back then. So I'm walking through and making the case for why I should be given my shot. Why, going back to Billy the Kid Young's first advice to me, which is you got to get your foot in the door. I was making the case for just give me a shot. Let me get my foot in the door, and I'll take it from there. So that's what I didn't realize I was doing then. I came to greatly appreciate it when I left radio some 16 years later, having never had put together a resume. So I was really kind of in trouble because I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? Never did a resume, and now I'm looking to significantly take on another job. So I had to do some networking, and it worked well. It worked well when I went from radio to the Brewers. It worked well when I went from Brewers to the FBI.
I'm I'm going to ask one more question and then open it up to folks. You're talking about networking and what you felt like you did. So now you're in a different position. You're an experienced, seasoned professional in PR. So, respectfully.
I hope so.
So if someone here is looking to pursue a career in something similar to you, what would, and you were doing the hiring, what would you be looking for first and foremost?
First, I'm going to look for some passion. I want to see a person who truly is sitting in front of me wanting to do this job, that will knock down a door, knock down someone that's in front of them, knock down anything that they would deem an obstacle to be in their way. If they truly wanted to come and I don't like to say people work for me. I like the idea that people are working with me on a team. So if you're going to join my team in this incredible experience, because that's what I would bring. I mean, together we're going to do some fantastic things. But I want someone who didn't just pick up the want ads and saw this cool job, and you know what, I just need to cover some bills, so I think I'll try this out. No, I want somebody who is going to come and sit in front of me, present themselves well, look like they are going to show up in that professional, whole person kind of image that I see in front of me. And they're going to come ready to do some good things on a daily basis. How do we make tomorrow better than it was today? What kind of fun we're going to have, even though this is hard, tough work. Man, we're going to have a blast while we do it together because we're going to be on a team. You don't join with me as just a coworker. You join with me as a team member, as a partner on our drive towards success. So that I'm going to be looking for someone who starts off with that passion. I'm going to be looking for someone who is talking to me about good organizational and writing skills. I would have to say I'm a pretty good writer. The one course that stands out to me, really jumps out at me in my mind that I use regularly is my writing courses that were given here at this school. Because at the FBI, you write everything. My bosses always say, you don't write it down, it didn't happen. That's just how we function. Everything is document at the Bureau. So trust me, I have plenty of opportunity to hone my skills on writing if I don't think that they're up to snuff. It's on a daily basis, on a regular basis. I can write as much as I want because I always have to document everything. But I would tell you, in all of my jobs, writing, effective writing skills, because you have internal audiences that are going to be reading, internal readers of your material in a corporate setting, and then you're going to have the external audience that will be reading your materials. Whether you're writing correspondence to constituents, whether you're dealing with a partner organization, whatever it is, you remember when you put pen to paper or you open up a Word document, that is not you per se that's responding. You know, when you think about it, someone asked me a question about the FBI. I am just the mouthpiece. I am the representative of the FBI. So everything I say, everything I do, I'm representing the Bureau, not just nationwide, but worldwide. So you got to get it right, and you have to be professionally presented. So writing is huge. Anyone that is, any of your marketing and communications that you are taking here as courses, that's going to be very important for you. So I'll be looking for all of those things. You know, how are you doing in those courses? Are they of interest to you? You know, the things that you're going to need in the job is going to be things that I'm going to be looking to see if you're passionate about wanting to do this type of work.
So clearly in your role, you've gotten just about every question from every source. So I know you can handle whatever question may come from this.
Oh, trust me, I can handle it, because if I don't want to answer it, no comment.
I invite you to stand up so we can see who's talking. And so, time for some questions from all of you. So here we have a question. I'm going to bring you to the mic and make sure Leonard has his.
Hello, my name is Ryan Thomas. I'm currently in a master's program in the EDIT program. You say you got your degree in business, but you have such a experienced background in the journalism field. Do you ever see yourself going back into either print or broadcast journalism where you don't have the loyalties or the constraints where you have to be a mouthpiece, but you can simply just be candid and maybe?
It's a great question. And it was a decision I had to make when I decided I was going to go back to school. And the decision to go back to school, that's another story behind that. There's more to that because I didn't do that willingly. I was kind of forced by my wife and my employer at the time to go ahead and take up my employer's opportunity to pay for my education. But when I did decide that I was going to go back to school, I could have done the easy thing as far as I was concerned and went after getting a communications degree. And said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do something that I know I'm going to do very well in school on. But at that point, I felt, you know what? After 16 years of being on the air, my life playing out in public, I grew up in the halls of a television and radio station combination. You know, I felt I'm not going to pursue what I thought was the easy thing. I thought, I need something that can be applied virtually in all aspects. Because you can take a business degree and kind of apply that in whatever you want. In fact, I was saying earlier, prior to coming here to Cardinal Stretch, I would have never fathomed possibly opening my own business or doing work for myself, ever. It just never crossed my mind. Having gone through this school, having those business class discussions about entrepreneur opportunities out there, it's something I would consider. Who knows, maybe someday I may open my own public relations consulting firm. Prior to going here and going through this program and getting a degree in business, I wouldn't have even known where to start. So to answer the other part of your question, would I have ever considered going back into that industry? You know what, the type of work that I've done thus far actually lends itself, I never actually got completely away from it. I could always return and go. I deal with media training with our own agents and law and other law enforcement agencies all the time. So I'm kind of in that realm. If I wanted to return, I probably could. I'm glad I did the job of being in the radio.
Hi, Leonard. My name is Greg. I'm in the bachelor's program here at Cardinal Stretch. Actually, I remember you from the radio station, so I got to pay you myself.
And God bless you, my one and only listener. I found you after all these years.
I don't know if you can legally answer this question, but is there an age limit cut off for pursuing a career in the FBI?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes and no. For our agents, you have to be a minimum of 25 years of age and no older than, I believe it's 35. It's either 35 or 37, it might be 37. But, so that is the specific limitations of pursuing a special agent's position within the Bureau. There's an age requirement and as well as physical requirements that you have to train on. Outside of that, we have, much of our workforce is not special agents. Most of our workforce consists of people in specialized positions in support capacity and in our analysts who are specialized to work on specific investigations, financial and otherwise. So those have no age limitations, no physical requirements and things like that. You can apply to where, if you're beyond the age limit of applying for special agent, we have an extremely diverse workforce at the FBI, even within the agents. Not everybody that becomes an FBI agent has a law enforcement background or a military background. We have had teachers that have left the teaching profession to become agents. We have had scientists, people that have worked at NASA that decided to become an FBI agent. The agent in charge of our division. I work directly for the agent in charge in my role, but we call it the SAC. But our SAC had a few SACs back, but she eventually went back to headquarters. She's in a much higher position at headquarters now, but Her job prior to the FBI becoming an FBI agent, she worked in the fashion industry in New York. So it really is, it varies. We have probably some of the most diverse workforce you'll ever see out there. A lot of Americans decide that, you know what, this is something that they feel a calling to do, and they do it. It's not easy getting your foot in that door, but I will tell you, it is one of the most rewarding things you'll ever experience in your life.
Hi, Leonard. Area teacher. I'm also your other listener. Just so you know.
You know, right when the number had 7, I had 2.
That's right.
That's correct. Thank you.
Question is, you stress the importance of networking. And with all the changes you've seen from radio, Brewers, and FBI, how can people here effectively network today, given all the technologies that in a sense can impede face-to-face or effectively getting through to another person to network?
That's a great question, because technology has changed the way we approach everything, specifically at the FBI. It really has changed in very, very, very good ways, and then there's some ways that it has brought its limitations as to how we used to do things. Nothing beats the good old-fashioned getting yourself into groups, whether it be a social group here at the university. I'll tell you the story for me with the whole networking thing for me. I didn't understand it at first. When I was leaving radio, like I said, the issue I had was I had never sat down and crafted a resume. First stop was I had to figure out how to put a resume together. If I'm going to leave radio, I knew right away I had a challenge without having that degree. That was one of the first times I was like, darn it, I don't have a degree. What am I going to do? But I'm going to do this, so I pursued it. The other part of it was advised of me to start networking, and I remember I was like, "What do you mean network?" To me, network meant going with the network, like turning on ABC and putting it up on the board. Networking it became one of the most effective things, and what it was advised of me was to look at organizations, business organizations such as the Metropolitan Area Chamber of Commerce. See, there I am, my federal world, Congress. The Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce in Milwaukee. They have hosted after-hours networking events where everybody goes to those. And that was one of the first things I went to. I remember not knowing what to do when I got there, because remember, I spent my entire young life in a situation where I was used to people coming to me when I was at live remotes and out in the public. I was not used to actively having to walk up to people. The world came to you. And I remember the person that had given me the advice to do the networking, she said, meet me. It was a networking opportunity, a networking event by the MMAC over at the Milwaukee Public Museum. Beautiful setting and everything. And I remember I got there, she said, just meet me over there and you'll get to see people. And I remember I walked up to her, I stood in the room, I said, well, what do I do now? And she said, you go up and you say, hi, I'm Leonard Peace, and you are. And I remember we did that for like the first couple of people, and then she peeled out and left me on my own. But boy, did I quickly learn how to swim pretty quick, and really come to appreciate the trading of business cards and information and keeping in touch with people at various companies and finding out, because you never know what little gems are out there. What companies you may have never considered. You'd be shocked at what type of job opportunities exist. But you do have to get out, and you have to do that a very effective, networking. And I don't, because I don't do it in the sense of career finding right now, or not in a search for a career currently. But I would imagine that a lot of those types of groups, these chambers, whether it be the Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce, the Brookville Chamber of Commerce, you better believe, go on their websites, look at their business networking opportunities. Sometimes you might want to consider, if you can budget for it, is to get yourself involved with some social groups. I remember, and again, I didn't pay for the membership, so it was one of these things where my company wanted me to do it, but I remember at the Brewers, they wanted me to join the Rotary, and I was like, what? Why me? Well, one of the best experiences came out of that. And to this day, even though I'm not an active Rotarian, I still consider myself a Rotarian. I still do things with the Rotary, because you better believe Milwaukee's business leaders, whether it be corporate leaders downtown or in a smaller group, in any type of a social setting like that, service groups and things, you're seeing this conglomeration of a lot of businesses coming together. That's where you're going to make friends. That's where you're going to make contacts. Maintain a updated contact list. But networking is very, very effective in trying to do the face-to-face.
I'm going to take the liberty of asking a question, but then look for hands for the next one as I come over to the gentleman up front. Leonard, something you talked about earlier, which I think would really resonate with folks here. You talked about when you were in the program, when you were pursuing your degree, you had a lot going on. And there were several times, perhaps, that you thought it would be best just to quit the program. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because now, you sort of present yourself as finished product in a way. You're in the role that you dreamed of. But earlier on, what was it like? What helped you persevere? Come over this.
Yeah, sure. It's a great point to bring up. What Mark is referring to is the fact that when I went through the program, again, you gotta think about where I was at in my life. I had gone through what was a successful career in my dream job of having gone into radio, and I've now moved on from radio. I successfully got myself transferred out of radio, and now I went into this other awesome job working for the Brewers. And I'm thinking, why would I need school? There is no way I am going to go and sit in a classroom when I don't need to. I've got a full-blown community. In fact, as far as I was concerned, I had my degree from the High School of Rock and Roll. It was at WKTI. I didn't need another any type of official backing from a degree. Wrong. Because I had that challenge coming out of radio and going into another professional career or another job. And it only made me pause a little bit, but you know what? I still achieved my goal. I still got the cool job. So I wasn't, it made me stop for a moment, and then I built the confidence again to say, I really don't need that degree. My wife pushed me to get that degree. My boss at the Brewers pushed me to get the degree. I finally did it. Once I started in the program, there was a little bit of culture shock. I had, again, I'm looking at myself in a full-blown career. I am not a young college student that's living with the parents at this point. I am a grown man sitting with a mortgage, wife who's a flight attendant. So when she goes wheels up for 2 days, and we had a little baby, my son was just born, he's older now, but I'm thinking, I'm Mr. Mom with this baby. I'm working long hours. I mean, baseball, it's not easy. It's very cool when you drive by Miller Park and you think, that's got to be pretty cool to work there. It is very cool to work there, but boy, I tell you, you better love living, eating, sleeping, and breathing baseball, because you are going to be at that stadium. That is your life for the summer. Ask any of my colleagues that are there. It is not easy work, because you are there during the day all day, and then you're there through the evenings while games are going on. So you're there all the time. It was not easy, and then you put in the fact that, heck, some of this stuff, the last time I was exposed to a learning environment, I was in high school. So I'm thinking, I don't want to do it. Many times I wanted to give up. Many times. There were times I would walk out on my deck. I remember going through those stats classes, and I'm going, I do not need this. I remember I was so mad one night, and I said to my wife, I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I am checking out of this thing. I don't need this right now. And she said, Leonard, no, you've got to do this. You have to stay in there, because there, at the end of this thing, it's going to be nothing like you've ever experienced. You've got to stick in there. Trust me. And I'm taking this from basically a teacher. She was an education major, so she put the teacher thing on me. But I was glad you did, because I did hang in there, and it was tough. I'm not going to say that the entire experience was just, oh, you're doing it right now for the students that are in the program, and everybody who went through the program. You know, it's not all roses when you're going through. But boy, I tell you, you had to stick in there. It was something that I didn't take lightly. I look back on the experience. It was such a great accomplishment that I was able to weather through that storm and stick with it. And I'm glad I did, because I have some friends who stopped. And it was one of those things, a buddy of mine, I remember he did check out of the program, and actually there was 2 people I know. They didn't complete it. And it was, they took that, you know what, I'm gonna take a pause for a while. Don't pause, don't blink. Now, you come this far, you keep going. That's what you gotta have the attitude of.
Good evening, my name is Chris McIntosh, I'm with the Associates Program. So I wanted to build off the question earlier relating to soft skills and learning how to just personally interact in such a high technology society. What other soft skills would you recommend for those that develop that are starting out? As well as with technology being so embedded in our society, are there any technological skills you would highly recommend as we're going through this program?
As it relates to what, a particular job, or?
Well, just in general, what skills do you see when both soft and technologically that can be generally used in the roles that you've done or that interacted with?
Yeah, I would say, obviously, because we live in, technology is changing everything. It's changing how this university functions, how this university teaches its students. You see it all the time with the opportunity for online learning and other aspects that they're bringing into play now. Anything that introduces you to enhance your knowledge of computer skills, because that's the way of the world. Everything that we do at the Bureau, in fact, the Bureau has changed its priority of persons that we look at. It used to be all about if you had a law degree, or if you it was lawyers and financial specialists. Now, one of the top recruitment categories for us is people with computer engineering degrees, because of the proliferation of technology in the world, and the internet, and how crimes are committed on the internet, and how we have to pursue that. So anything that's technology related, you should definitely consider and pursue those skills. I would say other skills that has served well, again, behavioral organization. I remember there was an organizational behavioral study that I took that helped me understand, because the FBI works very different than anything ever that I experienced before. Talk about a culture shock for me. Going from the private sector into the government, there were some huge adjustments I had to make as far as how I interacted with my coworkers. Because it was nothing like I had experienced before. It works very differently. The whole idea of government bureaucracy and how that slows things down. At the Brewers, I made decisions on a snap. I need to get out to Arizona to go to spring training. That was nothing. At the Bureau, very different. Just the whole processes that we use are very different, and that's just because of the way it's structured. It's a very different type of job. So organizational, behavioral skills, any skills that you could be exposed to, as far as I mentioned, cultural diversity, any of those types of programs and courses are things that I would recommend you either approach seriously or at least look at part of your course study.
We have time for one last brief question, and then we'll wrap up. Right?
Thank you, Leonard. I think a lot of what you said really resonates with the folks in the room. Question I have is, you know, in your various jobs you've had, I'm sure you faced several times ethical decisions, and sometimes probably challenged you because of the culture you were in or peers. And I guess I'm wondering how your experience at Stritch maybe impacted your sensitivity to ethical decision making, and if it changed maybe the way you viewed things in the workplace.
You know, I guess for me, you know, my ethics have always, I guess it's one of the things I've enjoyed about my life is I feel that I've always held high ethics in everything, in my personal life, in my professional life. I had an ethics program here at school that it was one of the courses I really enjoyed in the curriculum. But again, it goes back to my standards of how I approach everything that I do. You know, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be ethical in how I go about the business of representing the FBI in my job. So I have always, in fact, we have to do ethics training all the time. It's an annual requirement that they put us through every year. In fact, you'll get your credits taken if you don't do it. So we have a very comprehensive ethics program within our agency that everyone at the FBI has to take every year. It is, I guess, you know, my ethics and what's required of me and what's required of me and how I function in my job, they just really align together. It's one of those things I don't ever really question, because I know on a daily basis when I walk into my job, that's something I will not compromise. I'm just, I don't give it too much of a second thought, I guess. I know that probably doesn't fully answer your question, but it's a part of my job that I think the school itself obviously encouraged high ethics here. I'm a person who is all about being ethical, and my job requires it. And I guess I just never really think that much about it.
I just want to end with two things. One, we now have nifty shirts, and we want to say thank you. And I know the Alumni Association also has a gift over there for you, but we really appreciate you coming back, Leonard, and sharing your time, your expertise. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, and again, thank you. And again, it's been an honor and an absolute thrill for me to come back and connect. That's what it's all about, being an alumni of this fine institution. So I'll stick around for a little bit if you have any questions for me that we didn't get a chance to make it in during the program. But thanks again. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having us.